As promised, we're going to be continuing on with some of the other top stories that we've been following from this week. And we had been waiting for this announcement to ultimately come down, but it is official now. Graham Plattner, you may have known his name as he had become a rising figure there in Maine, has now officially submitted notice to formally withdraw from Maine's U.S. Senate race. This is according to the Secretary of State. And so, of course, we know that this now is triggering the process to name his replacement there on the ballot. And this notice comes just 2 days after Plattner publicly announced that he would end his bid. And this is coming after there was reports out there, specifically from Politico, that a woman he dated accused him of sexual assault. This is an allegation that he has since denied. And so, again, there is so much heat and attention now on this Senate race there in Maine. I'd like to now bring into the conversation to talk a little bit more about what's happening there locally in the state. Dylan Tusinski, he's a reporter with the Portland Press-Herald. Dylan, thanks so much for being with us here on Live Now from Fox.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And so, of course, again, this is a conversation that a lot of folks have been paying attention to, not only there in your state, but really on the national scale, as this Senate race has a lot of eyes on it. And so when it comes to Graham Plattner, we have been hearing allegations that have happened over the years of sexual misconduct allegations. But now this all seemed to come to a head this week. What are some of the initial reactions that we're hearing there, specifically from the Democratic Party, as Graham Plattner has officially withdrawn from the race?
Party was really quick to make it clear that they take these allegations seriously and that they weren't going to support his candidacy after they came out. Most of the previous scandals involving Plattner, about his tattoo, about his Reddit history, he was able to explain away to some extent by saying, that he was dealing with PTSD, with substance abuse, that he's a changed person. But this kind of is a different kind of beast, a different kind of thing that you can't really say you changed from. And so whereas voters are willing to kind of forgive some of his other controversies, acknowledge that he might have changed, that willingness was not there with the latest allegation.
Absolutely. And we're still continuing to take some video there of Graham Plattner. But I want to take the time to put up his campaign letter. This was the official letter that was put out as well. It says that Mainers voted for a new kind of politics. One is representative of people down here in the real world, not billionaires, oligarchs, or the political establishment. I want to ask you this, because that really is what he ran on, being different from those who they had seen previously run in these positions in the state. Is that why he was able to gain so much traction there with the voters in Maine? And what other things stuck out to him? Because you mentioned the fact that he had had previous scandals, but people were willing to seemingly look the other way.
I think he really did speak very explicitly very loudly to that anti-establishment undercurrent that I think is proliferating amongst all of American politics, left and right now. There was a lot of comparisons to him to Donald Trump, both in regards to the fact that he was an outsider, wanted to shake up the status quo, but also that he kind of seemed impervious to a lot of these allegations against him. He kind of deflected, denied, and kept rolling right along. However, I think the fact that this allegation has landed and that he's lost support because of it kind of indicates a little bit of a difference between how the two parties are handling that kind of allegation right now, at least.
And so, of course, we know that Susan Collins, she's the current senator who is running for re-election. This begs the question now, especially there on the Republican side of things, how does Graham Plattner now officially dropping out affect her campaign efforts at this point?
It's still really kind of unclear. We asked her earlier today at a campaign event here in Maine what her thoughts were on the race, who she would like to see win. She pretty much said she doesn't want to have any predictions. She doesn't really have any opinion on how the process is going to shake out. But it's still kind of unclear. The Democrats really kind of still aren't entirely certain exactly how they're going to go about selecting a new nominee. They've announced plans for a statewide convention later this month, but we don't know exactly how the delegates for that convention are going to be selected, how people are going to vote, how the candidates are going to campaign. There's still a whole lot of question marks that are all going to be answered, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks here.
And so as a whole, I do want to ask you this. When it comes to some of those Democrats who are now throwing their hat into the ring, who are some of the more probable prospects who have risen to the top? Of course, this all came still after Plattner had won the primary election there.
I think the name that I've heard the most enthusiasm about right now is Troy Jackson. He and Plattner campaigned together pretty frequently. We're both endorsed by Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, and both kind of campaigned on the same kind of progressive, anti-establishment kind of undertones there. So a lot of voter enthusiasm is behind him, but there's also a lot of support behind Nirav Shah, who was the former director of the Maine CDC during the coronavirus pandemic. And there's a lot of enthusiasm around him, too. He had a very strong showing in the gubernatorial primary last month. And there's also been a couple of other outsider candidates the owner of the Maine beer company, the Cleveland. His name is in the running here. There's a lot of candidates here, and it really is kind of unclear exactly who is the front runner right now, in large part because there aren't really kind of any guardrails. No one really knows exactly how this is going to shake out, how it's going to play out, or what the metrics are for the voters and the delegates to ultimately select a new candidate.
Absolutely. And Dylan, we do know that the Maine Democratic Party is expected to choose that replacement nominee at a July 25th convention ahead of the state's July 27th deadline. I'm sure that folks will be paying close attention to that. I want to ask you, though, overall, do you have a sense of how Mainers are feeling at this moment? Are they feeling the pressure to come up with a replacement pretty quickly? But overall, do they feel like their trust has been violated by Graham Plattner, being that they did choose him ultimately to lead the party forward?
There is a lot of mistrust here right now. There's a lot of mistrust, both amongst the candidates, obviously, like you said, the idea that people supported Plattner so fervently, and now that support has evaporated. There's also mistrust generally amongst between the population and the party. Plattner has kind of said that he's afraid of the DC establishment meddling in the selection process. I've heard some of those concerns echoed amongst the general population here. Maine is a very independent state, a very small state, very rural state. People don't like to have the outsiders meddling in their own business here. And so people are kind of mistrusting generally of the candidates now, especially because most all of them had just lost some sort of a primary last month, whether it be for governor or for Senate or for the House. And there's also kind of mistrust, like I said, between the voters and the party here. So while we're still waiting on the details to be fully fleshed out, people are still kind of in limbo, not exactly sure how they feel or how they think about everything that's happening now.
And Dylan, I know you've been very busy there making sure that those in the state are staying informed on what's to come with this race. Anything else that we're missing here on Live Now that you'd like to tell our viewers as you all are still working all the angles there?
I think it's important just to pay attention to the outlets here in Maine, first and foremost. There's a lot of national attention, like you said, on this race right now. But it's our reporters here, not just at the Press Herald, but at all the publications out here in Maine who are on the ground doing the hard work. And I really appreciate some eyes on our coverage there in that regard, too.
Absolutely. And we're so grateful that you decided to join us here on Live Now from Fox to give us that insight and perspective. Thanks so much, Dylan. We hope to have you on again soon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Wanted to bring that to you here on Live Now from Fox. What I want to do now is